Welcome back. It's time for Moon Over Manifest. Now, think about this. You've got 1917, time when the U.S. was about to enter World War I. The Spanish flu was right around the corner. And then suddenly we shift back into the 1930s, the Great Depression, the Dust Bowl, southeastern Kansas. You can't find a better book than this. Well, there may be a couple, and you'll get to those as you get older.
Okay, so first morning, May 28th, 1936.
Page 3 in your book. Page 23 in your book.
23, yes. So we're in that 1930s Great Depression modern day for the book. Yeah.
Yep.
What kind of addlepate starts school on the last day?
An addlepate.
I think it's what kind of idiot starts school on the last
Yeah,
day?
that must have been what she thought.
That's kind of what I was thinking too.
That was a term of endearment.
I'd been asking myself that question since waking to the sound of pans clanking downstairs and the smell of bacon and coffee rising upstairs.
Liking that.
My stomach growled, reminding me that Hattie Mae's meatloaf sandwich had been a too distant memory. When I remembered the Lucky Bill cigar box with a buzz of anticipation, I sprung out of bed and found the loose board, only to have Shady call upstairs.
Miss Abilene, you're burning daylight. Breakfast is ready.
As much as I was itching to get more than a moonlit look at what was in the box, I knew better than to keep a cook waiting. I left the box under the floorboard for safekeeping and checked to make sure the compass was still around my neck. I put on my one change of clothes, a blue dress with yellow daisies. The daisies were a little faded, but not so bad you couldn't see them. Then I splashed some water on my face and ran my fingers through my hair. It felt like straw, but was the color of a rusty nail. Wearing it short, I never fussed with it much, but I did look forward to that proper bath Shady had mentioned the night before. The stairs emptied into a small back room. More of a porch, really, with a black cook stove, a wash tub, and a cot. It appeared Shady could do his eating, bathing, and sleeping all in one place. There was a plate of biscuits, slightly burnt, and bacon, just as warm and pleasant as you please on the cook stove. Having someone cook my meals made me feel like I was at a fancy hotel.
That's me.
Your turn, sorry.
There's some of Elma T's blackberry jam in the cupboard.
Shady called from a big room with the bar top and pews. I spread on a modest amount and set it on a pink glass plate, the kind that came free in bags of sugar or flour or laundry soap. So I guess they used to give out plates.
Yeah, give out all sorts of things.
Since there was no table, I took my pink plate into the big front room. With the light of day shining through those stained glass windows onto the gleaming bar top, I didn't know whether to kneel down or belly up.
If you're standing at a bar, which you're not yet because you're not able to because of your age.
Well, they could stand at a bar.
Yeah, but the line has always been belly up because your belly is up against the bar. Belly up at the bar, boys.
Belly up to the bar. And she said she didn't know whether to kneel down
because of the pews and
like
the stained
she
glass.
was at church,
right,
or belly up to the bar. Shady was tinkering at his workbench as I ate my breakfast. He was looking real close at a tiny something, cleaning it off with a wire bristle brush. "What are you working on?"
The letter L.
he said, squinting at his task at hand.
Hattie Mae's been writing her column for almost 20 years. It's no wonder that typewriter's about to give out.
He blew on the middle key and eyeballed it from a distance, wiping off the piece with a cloth. He placed it beside the typewriter.
Now she can get back to her who's, what's, and where's, and I can get the L out of here.
Bump. Gideon hadn't told me that Pastor Howard had a sense of humor. Seems that nobody had told Pastor Howard either, as he didn't let on like he thought that was funny. I finished off the last of my biscuit. It was hard going down as my mouth had gone dry. Maybe if I made myself useful, I wouldn't have to go to school. I'd been in and out of schools before, but I'd always been in the protective shade of my daddy. So highlight that. I'd always been in the protective shade of my daddy. So, I mean, her daddy didn't like really give off shade other than like a shadow, but she felt protected in his presence, and now she's not. Here I was alone and exposed to the heat and clamor of the day. A bell started clanging from a distance, jarring me out of my thoughts. Sorry.
That's me. Better get on over to school. You don't want to be late.
He studied the splayed out typewriter in front of him.
Here's a couple things for you to mind while you're there.
He handed me the letters P and Q. Bump. So when people tell you to be good, be on your best behavior, my grandma used to say, mind your P's and Q's, meaning mind your manners, be on your best behavior. So he told her to mind her P's and Q's.
Bump. Now, you can use P and Q in another old phrase, but you have to add the letter D to the middle. So it's PDQ for pretty darn quick. So if you said to somebody, I need you to go get that for me, PDQ, they knew that they had to go right then.
I studied them. If I took these, it'd sure leave Hattie Mae in a pickle and a quandary, and she wouldn't be able to type either one because she wouldn't have a P for pickle or a Q for quandary.
That's pretty smart.
Shady smiled a half smile. As I put the letters back on the table, I noticed the day's newspaper lying off to the side. It was folded open to Hattie Mae's News Auxiliary. I picked it up and read the line at the bottom. All the who's, what's, why's, when's, and where's you never knew you needed to know. I headed out, giving the cowbell above the door a mournful clang as I left. Not just any clang, but mournful, because she's got to go to school.
Ugh. Who wants to go to school on the last day?
Well,
which is the best day of the whole year.
That's true. But not for your first day.
No. That'd be tough.
Okay, Sacred Heart of the Holy...
She's going to a Catholic school, just like Montecasino.
That's right. Sacred Heart of the Holy Redeemer Elementary School, May 28th, 1936. So the same day. You'd have thought I'd be used to this by now, being the new kid and all. I'd been through this umpteen times before. Nobody says umpteen anymore. Have you noticed that?
I do from time to time.
My grandma used to say umpteen all the time, meaning like a ton of times before.
Many.
But it never gets any easier. Still, there's certain things every school's got, same as any other. Okay, highlight this. Universals, I call them. Walking into the schoolhouse, no, just universals, I call them, sorry. Don't highlight. Walking into the schoolhouse, I smelled the familiar chalky air, heard fidgety feet rustling under the table or under the desks, felt the stairs. I took a seat near the back. My one consolation was that I knew these kids, even if they didn't know me. How could she know them even if they didn't know her?
We need to read on and find out.
Highlight. Kids are universals too, in a way. Every school has the ones who think they're a little better than everybody else, and the ones who are a little poorer than everybody else.
Well, this is the Great Depression. Everybody was poor.
But there's some that are even poorer,
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah.
And somewhere in the mix, there's usually ones who are pretty decent. So you're highlighting that. So she's saying every school has some universals. It has fidgety feet rustling under desks. We sure have that at our school.
I can't imagine.
Felt the stairs, checking out the new kid.
You back there, who's fidgeting your feet. Cut it out.
And the one thing we don't have is chalky air anymore because we don't have chalkboards. We have dry erase boards, smart boards, but that used to be a universal.
All the way through school for me.
Yeah.
Even college.
And then, but I mean, you're old, so.
What are you saying?
You're old. I just said it. So, kids are universals too. You've got the ones that think they're better than everybody else. You've got the ones who may be a little poorer. You've got the ones who've got all the cool clothes. You've got the ones who have the best iPhones. You've got the ones who have the coolest cars. And then you've got, the ones who want to be by themselves. I mean, every school's got the same kind of people in it, is what she's saying. Universals.
Guess what? They didn't have iPhones back then.
Well, no, but that's a
Heck,
modern day.
some of those
example.
people were lucky to have a phone at all in their house.
Yeah. It said...
It was hooked up to a wire.
I know. And somewhere in the mix, there's usually ones who are pretty decent. Those were the ones who made it hard to leave when the time came. And sooner or later, it always came. Guess she's been to a lot of schools.
I guess she has.
I guessed I'd never find out who was who around there, it being the last day and all. The books were already stacked on shelves for the summer. The blackboard was just that, black, no math problems, no spelling words. Then a girl with a rosy round face spoke up. I bet you're an orphan. Well, that's not very nice. Soletta Taylor, a skinny red-headed girl scolded. Why would you say such a thing? Well, she came in on the train without a mama or a daddy, didn't she? It was all the talk at the Five and Dime.
Five and Dime is what they used to call general mercantile stores, or what Walmart sprang out of. From Five and Dime, you got TGNY, and it had a 5-cent and a 10-cent on the sign when it was an early day store. Then from TGNY, you had other stores like that. Suddenly, Walmart became the new Five and Dime.
So it'd be like a small Walmart.
Yeah, very small.
It's cheap.
Very small.
Well, maybe you shouldn't be listening to all the talk. Besides, that doesn't mean she's an orphan. The girl twisted one of her red braids and looked at me. Does it? My face was hot and probably red, but I squared my shoulders. My mother's gone to that sweet by and by. I said it loud enough for everybody to hear, since they were all ear-cocked anyway. What does that mean, gone to the sweet by and by?
Her mother passed away.
Her mother passed away.
That's from a song. It's from a gospel song.
Some gave kind of sympathetic looks for my loss. I didn't figure it was a lie, since who knew for certain what the sweet by and by was? So maybe she just doesn't know where her mother is.
I believe her mother passed away.
I think she doesn't know where her mother is.
Oh, okay.
Might have read this book a time or two.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so she tells them that she went to the sweet by and by, even though she doesn't really know where she's at. But she said, I figured it wasn't really a lie, because who knows what the sweet by and by really is.
Yep. Maybe she's in sweet by and by, Arkansas.
Maybe so. Most folks seem to think it meant she had died and gone to a better place, but in my book, it just meant she had decided that being a wife and mother wasn't all it was cracked up to be. And when I was 2, she joined a dance troupe in New Orleans.
Well, I guess that's not Arkansas.
But since I had no memory of my mother, it was hard to miss her.
Indeed.
But, I continued, answering their next question before they could ask it, I got a daddy. I'd often been asked about my mother, but until now I'd never had to explain the whereabouts of Gideon. It wasn't fair, him putting me in this predicament. He's working a railroad job back in Iowa. He says it's not fit living for a girl my age, so I'm here for the summer. I didn't say that the railroad had been fit living for me pretty near my whole life, and I didn't see why this summer should be any different. But he's coming back for me at the end of the summer. For some reason, my words rang a little hollow. I wasn't sure if it was the look that Hattie Mae and Shady had exchanged the day before, or the look of pity on some of those kids' faces just then. Maybe they knew of someone else who got left for good, but Gideon was coming back for me, and I'd have a few choice words for him when he arrived. See, Letty, I told you she's not an orphan, said the red-haired girl. I figured Letty must be short for Soletta. They're cousins, said a freckle-faced boy in overalls, as if that explained everything. Your daddy ever seen anyone get flattened by a train? Now, what kind of question is that? It was Letty who said it. Come on, Ruth Ann. You jumped on me for asking a dumb question. What about Billy's?
I got this. It ain't a dumb question, Billy said. My granddad used to work at the depot, and he tells a story about how a feller got hit by a train in Kansas City, and dead as he was, he stayed on that engine car all the way to the Manifest Depot. Ooh, I bet that was drawing flies. Nobody wanted to peel him off, and since he had a round-trip ticket, they just left him there all the way back to Kansas City. Woo!
I heard a story like that, Letty said, only it was about a boy who rode a three-legged horse all the way to Springfield, and... Would you two hush up with your stories and let the poor girl tell her own, Ruth Ann scolded. All eyes were back on me. I don't suppose I have any story to tell, but my name's Abilene. That ain't a name.
That's me.
Sorry.
That ain't a name, that's a place, said Billy. You from the one in Kansas or in Texas? It's a town. Abilene, Kansas and Abilene, Texas.
Neither. It doesn't matter where she's from, said a girl with fancy curls that looked like they were done in a beauty parlor. Ooh, she must be rich to go to a beauty parlor.
1936.
She raised her eyebrow and looked down her nose at me. The fact is, she's living in a saloon in a stone's throw from that spooky Miss Sadie's divining parlor. My mother says that place is nothing but a den of iniquity.
Better highlight that one. Ask the priest what it means.
Please don't. Highlight. My mother says that place is nothing but a den of iniquity, meaning a place of sin. The only places I'd seen within a stone's throw from Shady's place were the cemetery and that broken down shack of a house with perdition written on the gate. Truth was, I didn't know what a divining parlor or a den of iniquity was, but you can bet I plan to find out. Shut up, Charlotte, and give the girl a chance to talk, Ruth Ann said again. Well, where are you from? Where's your home? That question always came up real quick. It was a universal, and I was ready for it. All over. My daddy says it's not down on any map. True places never are. Highlight that. My daddy says it's not down in any map. True places never are. Another voice, an older voice, spoke from the back of the room.
I see your father is well versed in the works of Herman Melville.
Okay, now I hate to tell you
this. Is this a woman?
But this is Sister Redempta who is
Sister
speaking,
Redempta.
and I don't think she sounds like that.
I see your father is well versed in the works of Herman Melville.
That's still not great.
I see your father is well versed in the works of Herman Melville.
Suddenly, chairs scooted back and the whole class stood. Oh, you don't really have to stand. Good morning, Sister Redempta. Now, at Montecasino, it used to be that if the principal or a sister or the director walked into the classroom, all the students stood.
And that's the way it ought to be.
And we don't do that. And I really, yes, I understand we're busy and we're working, but...
Why don't y'all try that next time one of the sisters walks in?
Or
it would be a throwback. They'd love it.
At least just greet people when you run into them in the hallway. Hello, how are you? But they actually had to stand up and say, good morning, Sister Redempta.
Moby Dick, to be precise. Good morning, class. I see you've had ample time to meet your new classmate and welcome her with tales of dead bodies and dens of iniquity.
She raised an eyebrow to the class. Suddenly she's Mickey Mouse.
I'm doing the best I can.
I gathered it was a woman since they called her sister. But since she was covered in black, with only her face peeking out of what looked like a little white box. It was hard telling. So our sisters today wear black skirts, white shirts, black sweaters, black shoes, and they wear a white with black veil. Okay? But this sister is dressed in the dress they wore at the time. And I have some photos that I'm going to post on my Money on the topics board of sisters from our convent, St. Joseph's Monastery. Pictures of sisters from that time dressed as she would have been dressed. And it is a black robe that goes all the way down to her sleeves, all the way down to the ground. And she had a wimple, like a white little box for her face came out, and then her veil.
And that's called a wimple.
Yeah. And so like she would have been nothing really, but you couldn't see anything but face. So she was like, well, they're calling her sister. I'm guessing it's a woman. I can't really tell. And then we're about to get to the part with her jangly belt. And it's really her beads that she's wearing around her waist. And then she has her rosary. And so they look quite different than our sisters look today. Gideon says a rose is a rose. Highlight this part. Gideon says a rose is a rose. But when it comes down to it, there's some more rosy and there's some more thorny. I didn't know yet if she was rose or thorns, but one thing I knew for sure, she wasn't any universal. So you're going to highlight all that. So she thinks she's got it all figured out. Places, school, towns, they've all got the same kind of people no matter where she's been. And she's like, this is a new one for me. Like, I don't know. She was a towering figure gliding solemnly to the front of the room. Her posture was straight and formal. The only movement about her was the swaying of a long strand of wooden beads wrapped around her waist and extending down to her knees. I caught the scent of lye soap as she walked past. Strong as it was, she must be a believer in cleanliness being next to godliness. And she wasn't taking any chances. So highlight, I caught the scent of lye soap as she walked past. Strong as it was, she must be a believer in cleanliness being next to godliness. And she wasn't taking any chances. And out to the side, you're going to write biblical allusion. Biblical, biblical allusion, allusion. And this is referring to the Bible passage that says cleanliness is next to godliness. So they're alluding to the Bible saying cleanliness is important. Cleanliness is next to godliness, meaning to be clean is to be closer to God. And they're saying, oh, she's not taking any chances because she smells really strongly of lye soap, which was a really, really harsh soap.
Yes, it was. And if you're sitting there with your computer on, Google that phrase and find out if it's Old Testament or New Testament. I'm betting it's Old Testament, but I don't know for sure.
Okay, well, so first of all, if we're watching this in class, your computer should not be out.
All right, okay.
But if you're watching this later, go for it. Okay. It did occur to me to find it strange for a Baptist minister to send me to a Catholic school.
You got to do what you got to do.
Sometimes religious folks draw pretty steep lines in the sand. Meaning if you're Baptist, you're not going to a Catholic school. If you're Catholic, you're not going to, I don't know, an evangelical school, like different religions.
Right.
Okay. Different denominations, I should say. Yeah. Sometimes religious folks draw pretty deep lines in the sand. But having seen Shady's place, which was also a church, saloon, and workshop, I could tell that his lines were a little fuzzy. Sister Redempta placed a stack of papers on her desk. I'm sure... Oh.
Here we go.
I'm sure you're eagerly awaiting your final report cards.
There was a good amount of moaning and shuffling.
Rest assured, you have all received marks that are fair and representative of your work throughout the past year.
She picked up the first paper in the stack.
Billy Clayton, come forward.
Billy walked to the front. Sister, he nodded, accepting the paper. As he shuffled back, those freckles got lost in the red rising in his cheeks.
Charlotte Hamilton.
Miss Beauty Parlor pranced to the front of the room. Thank you, sister. She smiled at everyone on her way back, but hearing the yelp she let out afterwards, I thought she'd sat on a tack. Her hand shot up. Sister Redempta, I'm afraid there's been a mistake. There is a B marked beside catechism.
I'm aware of that. Charlotte, I graded your final exam. And among other things, I do not believe that wearing black to a funeral or giving last year's feather bonnet to your sister can be classified as corporal works of mercy. May Hughes.
She continued.
Ruth Ann McIntyre. Noah Russo. Soletta Taylor.
Okay, so Charlotte had written down for her corporal works of mercy, which are like her unselfish acts of kindness.
Like Angel Tree.
Like Angel Tree, exactly. We're getting ready to do a day of service where Montecasino picks a community and we go and we help them. It might be at Catholic Charities, it might be at the food bank, it might be at a school who needs extra assistance and they don't have, enough people to do what they need to do, and we go help them out. So those are like corporal works of mercy, or feeding the poor. She wrote down giving her last year's bonnet to her sister and wearing black to a funeral as her big selfish acts.
What are you supposed to wear to a funeral? Black.
Black, but yeah, it's not like she did anything above and beyond, so she got a B in catechism. It was almost worth having to go to school just to see everybody itching and squirming. After looking at her report card, Letty Taylor slouched in her seat and whispered to Ruth Ann, Charlotte better air out her black dress for a funeral, 'cause my mama's gonna kill me. She must not have done very well.
I think all of these kids did not get a good grade.
Their teacher sounds pretty harsh. See, I'm looking pretty good right now. I was sitting pretty
Don't cross her.
as each name was called, knowing mine would not be among them. I mean, how could she get a report card? It's her first day.
Emmeline Tucker, come forward.
I must have been smiling for a while because all of a sudden my mouth hurt from changing position so fast.
You are Emmeline Tucker.
Sister Redempta said, as if I'd been wondering about that for some time.
I understand that you have just arrived, and unfortunately that leaves me with no basis on which to give you a grade for this term.
Yes, ma'am, I said. Ain't it a shame, I thought.
Therefore, you will have a special assignment to complete during this summer.
Assignment? Summer? A rose is a rose. But she was sprouting thorns, all right. Highlight that. A rose is a rose, but she was sprouting thorns. She was deciding she was not so sure about her.
I am pleased that your ears are in such able condition. Let us put your mind to the test as well. It seems everyone is fond of a good story, dead bodies on trains notwithstanding. Therefore, your assignment will be to write a story of your own. You may select the topic and it will be graded for grammar, spelling, punctuation, and creativity. It will be due September 1st.
Maybe I should assign an assignment like that for the
is
summer.
when school was school, and you didn't start until September the 1st.
Yes.
And you got out on May 28th.
And now,
You had 3 months of summer.
no.
What a ripoff.
Now we don't. But back to my original thought. Should I assign something
Yes,
like that for the summer?
please do.
She didn't wait for any ifs, ands, or buts from me. Good thing, too, as I couldn't think of a thing to say, but I didn't have any plans of still being in Manifest come September.
If you need help getting started,
She peered out of her white box at the class.
What's the white box called?
Her wimple.
Thank you.
I am quite certain there are some students who would be happy to offer their assistance this summer.
There was a god-awful quiet as nobody even looked my way. Then Letty Taylor chanced to shoo a fly off, and quicker than an auctioneer, that woman pegged her.
Thank you, Soletta. Perhaps your mother will allow you a stay of execution for a few months.
So she's looking around. None of the kids are going to volunteer to help her because they don't want to do a report over the summer. She shoos a fly, and suddenly she's like, oh, thank you for volunteering. And then she says, perhaps your mother will give you a stay of execution, because she had said her mother was going to kill her for her report card. Okay.
Oh,
Ruth Ann laughed behind her hand. Remember her cousin, Ruth Ann.
And Ruth Ann, a kind gesture on your part. As for the rest of you,
She shot an evil eye at the class.
it would do you well to remember for next term that acts of charity and kindness are also taken into consideration in one's overall grade.
She sounds hideous. Just read her normal. How about that?
yeah, it's too late now.
So now Ruth Ann has gotten herself into this mess too. Charlotte's hand shot up. I'd be happy to help the poor girl, sister. Why is she volunteering now?
She's a goody-goody.
She's a goody-goody, and the teacher just said it would do you well to remember that kindness and charity are taken into your grade. So, boy, she's going to step up now.
She's sucking up.
She gave me a pitiful look. I'll even help her find some more suitable clothes. Something a little less traveled. The nerve.
That won't be necessary, Charlotte. I'm sure Abilene will have quite enough help. Now, let us stand for our prayer.
The class stood and Charlotte flipped her hair around. No matter, she whispered over her shoulder. I'm spending most of the summer with relatives in Charleston, South Carolina. She was suddenly talking with a southern accent. Pity, though, I would have thought clothing the poor in taste would have been a fine corporal work of mercy. Snooty, rich girl, a universal.
So she's going to Charleston, South Carolina.
She is.
Well, they've got the Cooper River, which is spelled Cooper, but they pronounce it Cooper River. As
Great.
in, it's
Yeah,
two short O's together.
I got
Because
it.
it's Cooper
I
River.
got it because she's in South Carolina. She's going to South Carolina.
And she
And
may
I
go
would
down to the
imagine-
Isle of Palms or Folly Beach
Okay, we don't really care.
to go to the beach and have a good time and get in the water.
Okay,
Because it's hot and humid. More humid in Charleston than it is in southeastern Kansas.
but let's just think about the fact that she has money to travel in the summer
And how would she get there? By train.
by train and with a ticket because she isn't jumping off a train.
No.
And so she's obviously of means and sounds like she knows it.
Some means. And the old part of the family and probably her grandparents that have the money are in Charleston, South Carolina.
Probably so. All right, we'll be back
Right
for
after
the
this.
next installment.